All right, we are live. Today is Thursday, August 23rd, and this is our fortnightly design meeting. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to go around and do some quick introductions. So if anyone would like to share something that's not on the agenda, now's the time to do that. But also, where are you from and what your name is? I can go first. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California. I have a backdrop site today that is opening up for event registration. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the rest of the day. I'm very excited about it. Let's see, let's turn it over to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California, where there's a giant plume of smoke overhead, so something is on fire. I hope it doesn't get close. And now I'll turn it over to Luke.
Hi, folks. I'm Luke McCormick. I'm a web product manager and various other things in San Ramon, California. I'm going to the East Coast next week to look at leaves turning. And let's turn it over to Olaf.
Hi, I'm Olaf, not from California, but from Hamburg in Germany. And yes, let's turn to Gregory.
Hi, I'm Greg from Greece. So joining just to see how we're going to go and what we're going to cook next for the UX issues in the queue. Who didn't go? Savashri?
Okay, I'm Sarvashri, and I'm in Walnut Cove, North Carolina. And instead of it being August 23rd here, it's September 23rd.
And
Am I the last one? I'll go next.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, where the leaves are starting to change. You could come here, Luke. We have colorful leaves too. And some great mountain biking, by the way. And so this week I've been doing a little bit of playing a little bit with screencasts. And later today I have a brand new microphone coming. So that's the excitement in my life. So I guess that's it. Let's go. I don't know. Should I turn it back to you, Jen, or how do we want to proceed?
Sure. Let's see. So on the agenda for today, I don't know how much we want to go through this. I know Greg has his own issues he wants to talk about, but looks like Tim, you've added some stuff in here too. Where do we want to start?
Sure. Well, Olaf may be here because of this agenda item. I don't know. Maybe he would have come anyways. But I know the nodeless, what do we call it? The pathless node title. I just a couple weeks ago thought there's a flurry of activity around this right before the launch, and then it became clear it couldn't happen. Well, we missed the feature phrase, so we sort of set it aside for a couple of weeks. But I thought it would be really helpful to actually talk about the progress that was made and or which direction we want to go. And I did, and I thought it would be nice to give people advance warning of that so they could be here if they wanted to be a part of that discussion. So I put this in the issue queue about 2 weeks ago. And anyway, so I'd like to spend at least a little time on that. And I thought it might actually be helpful to call up the PR and actually look at it while we're talking about it. So I could do that. Does anybody else, is that okay if I get that? But it's going to take me a minute. So if somebody wants to talk about where we're at right now so far on that PR, that would be great. And I think, in my own opinion, this issue started as nodeless or pathless nodes, and then it became as much about sort of content on the front page, right? Because we're actually placing some default content, which isn't necessary to add nodeless or pathless pages, but it did sort of help explain it. And I thought it might not hurt to do a little brainstorming on just like, are there other front page design issues that we should be thinking about in conjunction with this? So.
Yeah, so in general, I feel like there are like 5 really good ideas that we've landed on, and we're trying to figure out how to solve them, and if any of them can be solved, like multiples of them could be solved by the same solution. And if I remember correctly, and Tim, feel free to correct me if I don't have this, one of the things we wanted to do was add a piece of content as a existing content. So we had an example of that sort of reference functionality. One of the things we wanted to do was add an example of a pathless content type and adequate usage. One of the things we wanted to do was make the homepage look more like a homepage would look on a website today if it were launching, rather than sort of an empty holder for something you have to imagine yourself when you first install Backdrop. And all of these things have things that could be in common with each other or could be handled on their own. And so, oh wait, another one was to make it easier for people to place or edit text on the homepage, because there was some confusion for anyone who installed the Backdrop site and hadn't encountered layouts before. They might create a page and then change their site homepage to point at that page, and then they'd be confused as to why the homepage layout doesn't work, thinking that the layout was an override layout and not a standalone layout. And this also has a little bit of a tie-in to our cleanup of the layouts page, trying to make that distinction clear too. So yeah, and I think that we've identified all of these different problems. We've identified even more possible solutions for them, and we're just trying to figure out what might be the best scenario for core. With the particular issue that we were working on for 120, I believe where we landed was that we tried to create a new pageless node type called promo box, and we had a little confusion about maybe we shouldn't do that, and then decided maybe we like the idea of card better, but didn't ever actually create a pull request using cards. We're still using the promo box pull request. And then what Tim's sharing right now, I don't know, Tim, do you want to talk about this? I'm happy to describe what you're pointing at, but you might be better at it. Or is who's
You're
sharing?
muted, by the way, Tim.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so yeah, but what we're looking at right now, I think, is the latest pull request, which shows 3 promo boxes, 1, 2, 3, in a grid layout placed onto the homepage. And this was inspired a little bit by a screenshot that Greg posted in the issue that showed the homepage of GovCMS, where it had a bunch of little blocks. I think there were 5 or something across the homepage. And we saw that and thought, oh, we could do that too. And the benefit of doing it the way that we currently have the pull requests implemented is that it would be very easy to add that to new installations of Backdrop without needing to change anything about the layout or the way that homepage is built. It just sort of drops a new block onto the page. The downside is that the block that we're dropping onto the page is a view. We already have examples of blocks and views on the homepage. It uses a grid layout. There are probably better ways to do grid layouts if you were going to build this yourself. And each individual promo box piece of content here is not placed as an existing piece of content, which was something that we did want. It's placed the same way other content is placed as appearing in views and blocks. So we only solved some of the problems we wanted to solve and not all of them. I don't know that we need to solve all of them in one solution, but there was some discussion about only achieving a few of our objectives here. And I think that if we are going to try and solve all of them in different ways, Tim's right, it would be great to have the discussion about how they all fit together, right? Like sort of step back and be like, what do we want our homepage to look like, rather than just kind of continuing to tack little things on without end goal in sight.
Sure. I'm going to jump in and just add, I'm not muted, am I?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So far, I think I posted something in the issue, actually, no, that's the PR. At some point, I think I said that, we've had like 15 people comment on this issue. I don't think, there doesn't seem to be any, well, there might be somebody on the call that has some objections that aren't in the issue queue yet. But I haven't seen any objections to the idea of a hidden path content type. And I'm not sure if there are objections to sort of this, kind of a layout change. A lot of the discussion has been around the specifics, right? It's been about what should it be called? What should the sample content be? And if somebody, if I'm wrong about any of those things, now would be a good time to speak out. I'll just also point out that Olaf has provided this slightly more updated screenshot of sort of a mock-up that would include actually an image and a slightly more styled version of these pathless nodes. I think I'd like to hear from other people now about what they think about the whole overall approach and what we're doing.
I'll jump in. First of all, just viscerally, I'm excited by the layout that I see there. I'm like, oh, hey, that looks good. so I like that idea. I'm surprised. It's not obvious to me why pathless nodes and homepage layout are so intrinsically linked. Like why are they not two separate issues? So why are they the same thing?
I think the only reason we have them as this together now is like we could create a pathless content type called card and put it in core. But if we're not using it anywhere, then it becomes confusing to people rather than an educational tool. And if we can give them a real life example of how that could be used, it'll be like, okay, it's there. You can edit something that's there. You can see it change. You'll understand how it fits together. But if we just put it in core, they'll be like, I don't know what that is or why I should use it. And they might ignore it. So the homepage is like sort of the most common use case for pathless content on real sites. It also could go on any landing page. It could go anywhere else. But we know we have the homepage in Backdrop. We have it in the default install. So it just made sense as being a place to put a real world example of how to use the content type.
Okay, so bifurcating into those issues, I don't have any opinion about pathless nodes other than not being against them for any reason. I'm strongly in favor of tutorial content and sort of creating and promoting and improving. Like I think that's all just wonderful stuff. So if this is the tip of the iceberg of like other things like that all sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna say that's another thing that I didn't mention in our like list of things we want to solve is a little better way to present instructions. And we haven't done this anywhere else in core yet, but this is an example where if we're going to put 3 pieces of content here, we could use the text in the content to be more information heavy rather than like our page and post just says like, this is what I am. It doesn't explain, what it means to be that thing. And here we have an example of us being like, let's use these words that we can put on the page to help. So yeah, and that's a whole nother thing where it's like, do we want to do that? I don't know, but it did get mixed in with this issue.
Well, I love the idea of the initial install being something, obviously, that if you're experienced, you could just ditch it. But if you're not experienced and you don't know what you're supposed to do next, a little thing says, here's what you should do next. Mm-hmm. It kind of looks like this, and here's a link to how to do more of this. And just, having that be more of a welcoming path seems like a very positive thing to me.
So I was about to say that this whole thing might look better now visually, but that was not the goal. So it's a side effect. It's a pleasant side effect. It looks a better homepage, but that was not the intention. The original idea and what people agreed was a better use case. So the initial problem that I recall we were trying to solve was to explain to people what pageless nodes or pathless content is, right? And how it can be used with an actual example. And we all agreed that the best way to do that would be a slideshow and slides, but
no, we didn't all agree.
No.
I never thought that was a good idea.
But
several
then
people thought that was a good idea.
So there were some people that thought that this was a good idea, but even the same people thought that this is a difficult thing to implement, and not only difficult, but it had some other issues, like we needed to figure out how to ship a slideshow library with core. So this is the things that we were trying to avoid. So what I was trying to say is that despite the fact that it might have been a good idea to add a slide, and it made better sense to say, that slides are pageless content. The slider itself is what you use to put the slides together. And people would probably understand that better, but it had implementation implications. So we avoided that. And that's why we landed on these card things. And initially I didn't know, I didn't have good ideas about it, but thanks team for putting that text together. And I think it solves the problem. The one thing that I would like us to add is like point the differences, because as from an end user point of perspective, like I see 3 pieces of text with a title, and then I see a 4th one underneath. And I would like the 4th one to explain why it's not the same as the 3 top ones. And like it still says, hey, this is your first post you made it, or that is like, I would like that to also say how I'm different from the boxes up there is that I have a read me more thing, which leads to another page with a full content, and that's the difference. So, but in better words. But
Yeah, I think Tim did have an early version of a pull request that did change the text of the other ones, but since we were trying to figure out how to get as little change as possible to get approval, and we nixed it. But I think that's a good point, and I think that you know, if we spend some time on the text of each of these things, that would be good improvement.
Yeah, so here's what I think. We all agree that this is visually more pleasing than what we had before. So let's go ahead with that and tweak the text to get it to do what we want it to do, to communicate the things we want to communicate. And then we can see what problems we've solved and what problems are left to be solved. These can be separate issues. Otherwise, we can be discussing all those issues endlessly. So
Sure.
That's what I was thinking.
Just for, can I, Olaf, you're next.
No, yeah.
I'm going to say 1 or 2 things. We also tried 2 posts on the front page, and that was originally to show what a view does better than 1 post, but then that was too busy, so we pulled that back. But Olaf, you go ahead and talk. You've had a lot to say about this issue.
Well, we'll see. But in a way, I like this current approach with the cards, and I like it even better if it's styled like cards.
Yeah.
So as in the example in the mock-up. But I'm still not sure if it's a good decision to place there 3 content items and to add a lot of text, because I see it's instructional, but it will be hard to find a good text. But my main objection is that it's quite hard to get rid of it and to change it. So, for example, if a person says, "Oh, that looks quite nice, but I just have 2 text blocks. I only want 2 cards. How do I do this?" I don't want it at all. For the other content types, you just say, "Okay, I delete it," and that's it. And here you have to delete 3 items, or you can remove the block, but you have still the content on your content page, and then you're not sure what do I do with it. And so it's not so simple as before, and that's why I'm a bit skeptical. And I think we could find also a nice layout with a gray area and 1 existing content block, which would serve 1 goal more, the existing content block. And yeah, I think that would be enough, in my opinion.
So
Less is better.
If we did an existing content block, we have some options, right? Because we could use a page for that. We don't have to use pageless nodes, or we could use card, or we have a little more flexibility. What I was envisioning, and I'm not sure I wrote this in a comment anywhere, is that I still want to use the reference existing content block, but I thought that we could put that somewhere else on this page, so that we would have both an example of cards in a view and an example of a referenced existing content block. And we could put it somewhere like maybe underneath the list of posts, or we could create another stripe. And the more things we can put on this homepage, the more this homepage starts to look like a real website. It does increase the complexity, right? We're adding more things that probably people aren't going to want. But I do think it also, increases the first impressions for people who are evaluating Backdrop, because they install it themselves and they're like, oh, I can see this is a real website, rather than, the typical Drupal installation where I see a header and a footer, but I don't actually see a functioning site. So yeah, I agree that text is going to be hard, and we are introducing a lot of complexity. But I like the idea of solving some of our problems in different ways and showing different examples of how cards or referenced existing content blocks can be used.
So
I'm a little
would
bit
like-
confused about what a card is, and what is the new person going to think of? What is a card? Is that a new content type different from what other web pages do? And if it is, how is it useful? That's my first comment. And the second comment is the whole thing is too text heavy. It's not bad that it's text that has a lot of text, but I would like to see more photographs. There should be a photograph for each of the 3 examples. And the hero image should be something so inviting. It looks like a real website, and this is going to be a really powerful system to work with. The little cloud image doesn't do anything for us, I don't think. I would really like to see sort of a very inviting web image that would give people an idea of how they might use that image for their own website, that area, that hero image for their own website. That the background is not inviting.
You mean the blue,
The blue clouds.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
I-
so that's
I-
a randomly created background that Wes has put together, I think, when he was building bases, if I recall correctly. So it's being randomly generated.
Yeah, I agree. It does look much better. I mean, just this screenshot with one photo looks so much better than the pull request version that just has text. I think the photo and the style, as Olaf mentioned, with the white background making it look like a card, looks really great. One of the reasons we haven't included images in Backdrop Core before now is that trying to figure out what to do with those files is hard. Backdrop treats files as content, and we would now be shipping files that aren't content, like they would be in the code. And so it's just, I mean, there's no reason we can't think about it and figure it out and do it right. We just haven't done it before. So Chris, the example of the hero image is something that is done in CSS in the theme. So it's not content, where I think if we had a photo there that was more compelling, it would be content. So that was just a way to skirt that issue of figuring out, how to handle it. But I think that it makes a big difference. I think it's a worthwhile problem to solve.
I think it's worthwhile in kind of a long-term thing. I mean, not anything that's like gets solved super fast, but I feel like this is something that Drupal always missed, is that for a content management system, it sucks at managing content. And it'd be good for us to sort of like not just push that off, because there's, like solve that problem. Content's important. We should be able to bring it in, get rid of it.
There's one comment that, so first of all, Salvatore, it sounded that you were making a comment about the fact that the first thing that we have as a card there had the image, but the rest didn't. The plan is to make the rest as that. It's just, it was a quick mockup, basically. And Olaf, without wanting to dismiss what you just said about the complexity, I realize that is what it is. But user studies have shown that it's easier for people to remove things than to add them. And by a big difference there. So it's easier to find and delete things than try to figure out how to do things or what they do. So I think that it overweights the benefits, like overweight the drawback of, now if we could add a button or like some automation that would say, get rid of everything in the front page, or I don't know.
The delete button on the homepage layout.
Yeah, delete everything, wipe everything. It's like, or whatever, clean start or whatever. And this is very trivial, and we can go on about bike shading, about the text that will go in and the images that will go in the actual issue queue. But I would like everyone to have a little bit of a homework of what the industry calls these things. Like ask web developers or people that start what they call these things, because at least the government, the people in the government, the content editors in GovCMS, which I have experience with, they call these things tiles, and it wouldn't understand cards, but people might be calling it anything. So instead of having opinionated thing of what it is, I would like us to know what the industry calls these things more often, so that it's not confusing.
A card to me reminds me of the old Apple HyperCard, or some kind of database card, or information about something that's a data item. So I don't know if that word card is the right, like you say, what does the industry call this?
Yes, is it a promo tile or a promo box or a promo whatever, or a front page card or whatever they call it? But yeah, we need to figure it out. I don't want us to do that now, but
Yeah.
we can like shed. But do we at least have a sort of like a general consensus of on the fact that this is heading to a place where we think it's better than what we have now, and we should proceed with that?
I think it's going in the right direction.
Cool.
And I think I agree with you that it's easier for somebody to click on something and say, I want to replace this image, or I want to replace this text, or I want to delete this image and text. It's easier to click on something to get rid of it than to figure out how to put up a third image on something, or second image on some layout that they don't understand yet.
If all these things have the little hover gear contextual links that give you lots of options, delete this, edit this, and stuff, that's a big help.
Yeah, we should explain that's the first thing you want to do, is how you can make this your own for everything, for the hero image, for the welcome to backdrop. I mean, that's text that's coming in, and they're going to have to change that. So the first thing that we should teach people is how they can change what they see.
Yeah, by the way, I have one question. In some phase of the discussion, we had also versions. I think also I provided one where I put in some links, kind of delete me links. And then other people said, we can't do that because we don't know if people have the permission to do that.
Yeah.
But
So
on the other hand,
we can't put it in the text because the text is content, but we can put it somewhere else. Like if we like that idea, because we like backdrop knows if people are allowed to delete that. We just, person writing the text isn't going to know.
But I don't understand the difference to the text which we have now in your first post, where we write, this is your first post, you may edit or delete it without the link. And the person who reads it doesn't have necessarily the permission, so it's also not right.
Yeah.
And so it's the same situation if we put the link.
Right.
I think
Well, so the problem with putting the link is that you've created a broken link, and that's not just bad for people, but it's bad for the website in general. I mean, I agree the experience is the same, but if you tell someone they can edit it and they can't, I mean, it's not the same as giving them a tool that makes backdrop seem like it's broken. It's like they're like, okay, well, I can see that somehow I can edit this, but I don't know how. But if it's like, here, edit this, and they click it and they're like, oh, backdrop doesn't work, I think it's a more serious problem.
So I think then we need these links provided in another way. But I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
To change it or get rid of it.
There's ways around it. You can say if you log in and you have the right permissions, you will be able to edit and delete them, or buttons will appear that will allow you to edit and delete it, or things like that. But we can fix it. It's not like these are trivial things that should be relatively.
This also might be solved by another problem where right now our contextual links are not discoverable. Like you have to know they exist and don't move your mouse over the right place in order for them to appear. But if those were like a little edit icon that was always visible, people would know they were there and they could discover the fact that there is an edit and delete link, and those links are aware of your permissions, what you're allowed to do. So there could be like some other things we can fix that'll also make this problem better. But yeah, it is tricky.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I filed an issue in our queue for it, but there are issues for that already in Drupal land, and I think there's a module where you click a single button at the top of the admin bar, and then everything that's editable gets one such icon, so you know that these are things that you can edit or tweak. But yeah, these are all nice follow-ups. We can follow up with that.
I'm going to jump in quick. And one thing I'm hearing a little bit, though, of some criticism that there's too much text and too much stuff. And then also, like, how can we add more clarity and add more stuff? And I don't know, that confuses me a little bit, like how we're going to do both. Or, I mean, I'm not sure we can, so we might have to make a choice. Can I go ahead?
Better things.
Sure. Let me really quickly do something else, though. I did, this is, I started playing around with Sarvashri with Softaculous, and I was excited to actually see how backdrop is presented in the interface. And one of the things I did is went to the demo that they provide, and I thought my initial reaction was, it's just not really exciting. If I'm on Softaculous and I hit demo, this is kind of boring. But then I looked at some of our competitors, and these are this is Drupal 8. This is when you click on the demo button on Softaculous, that's what you get. Here's WordPress.
Huh.
If you click on the demo button on WordPress, if you click on the demo button on Joomla, that's what you get. So we're actually not doing too bad compared to some of our competitors in terms of just attractiveness of the front page, like when you spin up the demo.
At least, I mean, both Drupal and I mean, all three of those actually have quite nice demos that easily come up, but for some reason, Softaculous isn't leaving them to that.
Are you saying that this is not how they come up in the real world?
No, that's how they come up when you install vanilla Drupal, like even Drupal 9. But they're moving towards, I think, making Olivera the default now, which would be like
this is it. I mean, I think that's a slightly interesting. I don't know if we've talked about that before. There's a link to the user guide right on the front page.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Joomla one is really kind of surprising. Nothing there.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you install Joomla, it gives you like the choice of 3 or 4 sample sites to download.
Yeah,
so
during
those look nice. Yeah.
I think we should be able to blow all of them away by putting great looking graphics and something that looks like a real web page.
Well, Sarvashri, I think there's some, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think there's some debate about whether or not we want it to look like a great looking web page, or we want to just provide the raw framework of a tool. So, or does anybody disagree that we want this to look like a web page? You know, a real web page?
Well, like a real web page.
Yes, I would like it to look like it, but we have to define what that means for everyone.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is if we're going to choose content to make it look real, we can't make it look so specific to one audience that another audience says that's not for me.
Right.
So that's like why we chose this like blue image. It doesn't have people in it. It doesn't show anything related to anything else. So it's completely non-offensive and yet not compelling at the same time.
Yeah, well, I can remind you guys that the welcome to backdrop thing, which might not be so welcoming, and I know that this is adding text, is basically a block, and that's the title, right? The block can have a text that say, hey, you can change the background if you want, or the text. That's it. So basically you will have little pieces of, components in the page that would say, hey, I'm this, but you can change me. You can remove me. You can change the image, you can change the text. So yeah.
I like that idea. I don't think we have too much text. It's just that the text needs to be functional. It needs to describe what people can do with this. That, I have this text on this block means that this is what's happening. Text on this next block means that this is what this can do. This is how it can work for you. Here's how to change it. I think you could have more text if the text is educational. And then I really like the idea of the link to the documentation. click here to learn all about backdrop, and then learn how to replace these photographs with your own photographs, that sort of thing. So it really gives people a chance to click on something and see what it will do, click on something and change it how they want to change it. It gets them invited to do something with it. The original just doesn't give anybody any inspiration.
Another
Yeah.
thing
You have to
we-
be a developer and know what you want to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't really give you any real starting points of how that content got there and how it's going to be useful for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so actually, that's a good point, and the combination of what Savasri just said and what Tim showed the before about Drupal having a link to the user guide, instead of having too much text, we can have, which is preferable, because then, see, yeah, I know what you're saying. Then it's like great
that's
minds.
exactly what
So-
I was thinking.
Yes. So another bad thing from a developer perspective point of view and a translator point of view is that if you have too much text, then this needs to be in a translatable string thing that works for every language. So we need to minimize it anyway. So another thing is that we should keep these things to a minimum and say, hey, this is the I don't know, the hero block, and you can change it if you want to find out how. Click here, and it takes you to the documentation online. And do the same with the pageless nodes underneath, and the same with the content, which will basically explain to you how you can remove everything if you don't want it.
And the same thing about the layout, like, I feel like this is the kind of thing we could really make a lot of use of, because you're right. I mean, you log into the website, you want to do something. It would be great if we had a page dedicated to that task, like that first instinct of the thing you want to change when you install Backdrop. And we might not have those pages, and that would be a great reminder to us that we need to document all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. Before we close, and I think we had great ideas, and we have some actionable things that we sort of like, we seem to have consensus here at least. And I will have to say that for those that are anxious to actually make a decision now, that during the last cycle of development, we tried this thing where there were even 3 or 4 or 5 pull requests in the same thing. And I know that hardcore developers might freak out when they hear that, but it has worked very nicely during the last dev cycle for us. Like, there were people that were building on top of other people's pull requests, and at the end, because we have the pull request sandboxes, we got to test every pull request and decide which one was best and improve it. So everyone that has ideas and can actually file pull requests, let's actually file pull requests, get people to test it and see which one they like better. So
I liked that too.
Okay. On the process point for facilitation, one, I think an important point was just raised about translation. And Olaf, do you want to say something about what we should be thinking about in terms of translation when we think about a pull request like this?
No,
No? Okay.
I didn't think about it so far. So
Okay.
yeah, so there's not a problem. It's just this text should be wrapped in T functions so that it can be translatable. And the more text that we add, and the more
I don't think so.
Because it's content, it's not an interface.
Yes.
Yes, but we do have config translation, don't we? Like,
Yeah, but that's
What
not
about this
content.
is your first post, you may edit or delete it. It's even just normal content. You can't translate it, you just
okay.
change it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you change it. Or you delete it and write another post.
Right.
So the welcome to Backdrop thing is not translatable? I think it is,
No.
isn't it? Oh,
That's
Hmm.
welcome to
Don't
Backdrop
think
is a
so.
block title. But
Yeah.
like, if you installed Backdrop in a different language, that's not enough. Like, you would need content translation. Like, there's a whole bunch of other things you need to do to actually translate stuff.
I thought that the installation profile had this as a string, and then if you translated that, it would be translated as part of the core installation profile. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong about it.
The install profile creates nodes, so this is generated as content. So now I don't know if you could translate it before you generated the nodes. That would be the thing.
Yeah. I think that's possible.
Sure.
Another
but-
related issue, though.
Sure. The other thing I'm just, we have to keep in mind, though, that if we make this kind of change, in how many different languages do we have language profiles for? there aren't immediately translations for all of this. So there's a period where for all of these other languages, everything will, I'll install the site and everything's going to be translated except the content, because nobody's done that yet, right? Is that, and I don't know to what extent we've worried about that in the past, or to what extent we should be.
I think
We shouldn't.
that's currently the way it works with the content we create.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not breaking anything. It's just that it won't be translated until
Well,
someone does it.
But I do think that it's possible, and we could create an issue to translate content on install if strings were provided as part of the translation, and that would give us the ability to do that, but we haven't done it before, so we might need another core change to support it.
And the reason why that issue does not exist was because I already thought that we were doing that, but cool.
Greg had known there would be an issue.
Olaf, if
I
you
think
stop,
I think
Go
we
ahead.
should do that. So
I think we should.
because
Why?
it should be treated as the usual content. So if you now change that, the way how it's translated, and then you want to translate other content and you're confused because it works in another
Yeah, no,
way.
I wasn't recommending that we translate it differently. I was just thinking when we create the node, if you had installed the site in German, the node, the first node that was created would be in German, and there would be no English version. It would just be only in German. And so then that way
Exactly.
it would translate. If you wanted to create an English translation, you would have to translate it the same way you translate other content. Just that string of text that gets saved when the node is created would be different.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
But that is
Also-
currently supported, so we'd have to.
We could also have just a little text on the front page that says, do you speak a different language? Here's how you translate to your language. And get them
Yeah.
pointed into the fact that everything is translatable. We don't have to provide all those translations ourselves.
Well,
Yeah.
the way that it works, we have to, but yeah, anyways.
I think we need to stop that. We've got 5 minutes, or cut that discussion short. We can talk more about it later. We've only got 5 minutes left in the meeting, and I would like to talk about just next steps, because I didn't expect to answer any questions today. I think the discussion has kind of went the way I would have hoped, which is just we got a bunch of ideas out there. So what is sort of the next step? And this is a little bit unusual because a lot of these things could be broken out into a bunch of issues, but I don't know how dependent they are on each other. Like, we could break out the pathless nodes completely from any of this display stuff as a separate PR, but I don't know if that's a good idea. On the other hand, how big do we want this PR to become?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is almost feeling to me like it's almost like a small initiative, like to figure out a bunch of things together. And I don't know if it needs to be. Maybe we can deal with them one at a time.
I have
Huge initiative.
another suggestion too, and that is, as we are giving them backdrop, we could also give them a fully fleshed out little website like Tim and I were working on, this farmers market website. Give them a website that's been built so that they can load that one and see how it's all put together. And that website could be deeply explaining how it was made. And that could combine with the documentation, go along with the documentation of a website that
you
is
building-
a real website.
Okay.
Are you building that as a recipe, by the way? I know that we're deviating the theme. Are you building that as a recipe?
I haven't yet. We have 3 minutes left. I want to focus on next steps. What happens now? I mean, one vision would be to say, let's look at all of this for the next release, 1.21, and then, sort of try to coordinate it in some kind of a, like I say, initiative, or continue, maybe we continue talking about these in the design meetings a little bit more
I
actively.
think, regarding next steps and how big the PR would become, Tim, is the current PR of which you made, is it very big, code-wise?
No. Actually, it's not. But
Because
it's more complex just in terms of like content and the number of decisions we're making. Code-wise, it's quite simple.
Okay, because I think we are very near
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
we don't need much more. And if we, on the way doing this, polishing now the design and so on, and the texts, and if we then identify a thing which is completely stands on its own feet, has to stand on its own feet, then we could do that. But otherwise, I wouldn't split it up now.
Yes. I agree.
Well, Mike, there have been a number of small issues that have been raised, like, for example, replacing this blue cloud thing with another image. That could easily could be.
That's another story.
Well,
That's
it could be, but should it be, right? Should we be making these decisions independently, or should we be trying to come up with a final layout and then make everything work together? That's sort of my question. Is do we want to break it apart so much that we're making a bunch of independent decisions that don't necessarily tie together?
This is becoming way scope creepy after that, because the issue, we can start a separate issue, but the title of this issue specifically is provide a new hidden path content type, which is what we're doing, providing that plus some styling for it, which is basically the gray area. That's all that we're adding. And that's what I think we should keep it focused on. Anything else should be separate issues, follow-ups, or separate issues.
Even the images.
And the images should be decided, I guess, here. As part of the styling.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, but these images, not the hero image.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Your image can be another issue.
I will be pretty shocked if there is an additional creep as this discussion goes on. So I think the idea that this is clearly neatly packaged already and we just need to finish it is deceptive.
Yep.
Because there's so many unanswered questions about exactly how the links are going to work and how blah, 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 that I don't know. It just feels to me like it's going to start to creep, but we'll see. Okay, where it's 4 o'clock, or it's in Minnesota, it's 4 o'clock. It's on the hour. Does anybody have any final comments about this or questions?
Nice
Thank
discussion.
you, Tim, for bringing it up.
Yeah, and the way that you summarize it, Tim, is like really helpful. So if instead of putting it in plain comments, maybe you can add your comments, or anyone actually add it on the top, like the first comment of the issue. So we have a summary of what was discussed over time and what we're heading at currently. So that's helpful usually.
Okay. I should have quit sharing earlier. I know some people don't like it when we do a lot of screen sharing because they don't know who's talking, but I think it was really helpful this time.
It was.
So, okay.
One thing for next time, just for the next time thing, because we consumed the entire meeting for this specific issue, is how we how we bring the enabling telemetry into the installer thingy without scaring people away. But that's in 2 weeks from now.
Good.
Let's discuss.
I like that we have topics backed up.
Yep.
We're already thinking about 2 weeks from now. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting.